Babe of the day. Babe of the day. Annie Farge. She was one of the most delightful French imports to hit America, and it's an absolute shame that she didn't become a household name. Annie certainly could have been a big star in America, and she had a promising start. But CBS has always had a way of canceling good shows too early and destroying careers in the process. Such was the case with Annie Farge. Before I start on Annie, I wanted to give you a heads up on next week. Starting Monday, the Girls of Home Improvement. That's right, Monday's video will be on Pamela Anderson, followed by Debbie Dunning on Wednesday. Don't even think about missing it, unless there's something wrong with you. Now, on to the fun. Annie Farge worked in theater for years before becoming an angel. After her wings got clipped, she fluttered around Hollywood for a few years before returning to France. What the heck am I talking about? Well, I'm not speaking French. Keep watching the rest of the video to find out what I'm talking about. In my previous video, I talked about another French-turned-American actress by the name of Christine Carrere. I don't know if these two knew each other, but they share a lot of similarities. I would like to think that they could have been friends. Both of them started and ended their careers around the same time. Both of them returned to France to live out the rest of their lives. They were both short, and best remembered with short hair. Both of them had a short-lived American TV series of their own with an American male co-lead. As it stands, both of them were talented actresses who have been unjustly overlooked by the masses and are little remembered today. I talk about Christine Carrere and Annie Farge because I think people need to know about them. If this gets you to watch their stuff, then I know I've done a good thing. Annie Farge was born as Henriette Goldfarb in Belgium. When she was a young child, she and her family fled Belgium before the Nazi occupation of World War II. She grew up in France, worked in France, and returned to France after a brief run in America. Annie liked the idea of acting since she was very young and wanted to become an actress. Her mom was against the idea, but gave in when Annie was accepted at the distinguished Paris Conservatory, a college of music and dance. While still a teenager, Annie was working heavily in theater productions. At the age of 16, she met a man who would become very important in her life. He was the Dutch-born Dirk Sanders, a dancer, director, actor, and choreographer. Annie admired his talent and, actually, felt her talent was inferior to his. What Annie didn't realize, though, was that she had a sparkle that made her stand out. That's why Annie Farge became a star and is still remembered. As early as age 20, she was getting parts in French movies. Annie and Dirk continued to date each other exclusively for years. It's because of this that she ultimately came to America. In 1958, Dirk came to the United States with a ballet company. Annie missed him so much that she followed him to New York, and they were married in August of that year. Since she was in New York now, she tried a career in Broadway. It doesn't happen like this for every Broadway hopeful, but Annie got noticed very quickly. Famous Broadway producer Joshua Logan discovered Annie and thought she was quite good, but needed to take English lessons. It wasn't long before she became an understudy in the 1959 production of The World of Susie Wong. Also that year, she and Dirk were expecting a child. Things were really looking up for Annie, and it only got better. TV producer Jess Oppenheimer, who was the producer and head writer for the legendary sitcom I Love Lucy, had just come up with another series called Angel. I Love Lucy ended only because Lucy and Dizzy ended in real life. People still love that show and that kind of comedy. Jess wanted to continue the general idea of I Love Lucy, but in a different form. This time around, the wife was going to be the foreigner. The husband would be the American. It wasn't a Lucy clone by any means. As a matter of fact, there were a number of sharp differences. John Smith, the husband, was not in show business, and Angel had no great desire to enter that world. John worked as an architect. Where Lucy and Ricky always tried to trick each other, and that was where a lot of the comedy came from, John and Angel generally got along, aside from the occasional misunderstanding. Angel, unlike Lucy, was not an idiot and didn't intentionally make trouble. A big part of the mischief Angel got into came from culture shock. She had a thick French accent and was still learning the language. Then, of course, there was getting used to the American way of living. Like I Love Lucy, Angel had its friends and neighbors characters. Unlike Fred and Ethel, Susie and George were younger and around John and Angel's age. Ethel was usually a good influence on Lucy, where Susie was often a bad influence on Angel. George's function seemed pretty similar to Fred. Annie was cast as Angel in the series without a screen test. She was just believed to be that good, right from the start. Annie gave birth to Leslie shortly before filming started. I'm a fan of this series, and it's hard to believe that, for all 33 episodes, Annie Farge was a young mother. The Angel pilot did not impress the CBS network at all. It's hard to figure out what they didn't like about it. You would think they would want another show from the man that gave them I Love Lucy, but they fought him every step of the way. The pilot was later shown to the sponsors S.C. Johnson and General Foods. They loved the show and told CBS that if they didn't put Angel on the air, they were going to cancel their sponsorship of all the CBS shows they were sponsoring at the time. That radically affected CBS's decision, and Angel was made for series. From the start, Annie Farge got a lot of positive reviews and a lot of good press as a promising newcomer. She was well liked, and so was the show. It was filmed at Desilu Studios, and some of the players of I Love Lucy appeared on this show. However, in the short time it was on, Angel had been put in 3 different time slots. I never have fully believed in the excuse of low ratings for the cancellation of a show. CBS killed the show on purpose because they didn't like it. This sounds petty, but it's happened countless times since TV began with many networks. Angel was about newlyweds John and Angel Smith. Angel was short for Angelique. Usually, John called her by her full first name when he was going to reprimand her. We don't find out her maiden name of Bouchard until near the end of the series. Angel had a lot to deal with. She had to adjust to married life, living in America, and learning the language. Ironically, these were all the things that Annie Farge had to deal with in real life. Angel tried real hard to do the right thing, but often goofed things up because she didn't know better. She was pleasant for the most part, but when she got mad, she could really throw a fit. A recurring gag is when she shut herself in the bedroom and refused to come out. There was no way John or anyone else was going to drag her out of that room either. Marshall Thompson was good as her husband John. The two just seemed to click on screen. I could believe these two were married. It was a good show that suffered a bad fate. Marshall had a great long career after this. Annie didn't fare as well. In 1961, the same year Angel was canceled, Annie got divorced from her husband. From 1961 to 64, she had a handful of smaller roles on TV shows. She was a series lead, demoted to bit player. Truly a waste of a talented actress. I think she could have been made a series regular in another show, even if it wasn't a lead. Annie moved back to France. She did a number of TV and film appearances over there until she quit acting altogether in 1968. After that, she became a theatrical producer and stayed largely out of the spotlight. Annie produced a few movies, the last of which was Escape to Victory in 1981. In the 1970s, she became the manager of popular French singer Michel Polnareff. They had a romantic relationship for a while, but after that ended, she still stayed on as his manager. Annie died in 2011. She had a good long life after Angel, but she deserved more of a shot than she got. What she did, though, was cool and will always be enjoyable. Anyone who can leave such a lasting impression, like Annie Farge, deserves to be called a Babe of the Day. Babe of the Day.